Sugali. My name is Nicholas Webster. My Oneida name is Deyahuagat. It means fast boat. I am Bear Clan. My roll number is 9124. My grandparents are Joe and Helen Webster. And on my mother's side, my grandparents are Nick and Mary Matoxin. My parents are Joe Webster and Leslie Ness. I have a wife, Jessica, and a son, Aiden. I would like to honor the veterans. My grandpa Joel was in the United States Army, Merchant Marines. My grandpa Nick was in the United States Navy. He sailed on the USS Hornet. And I would also like to thank all the other Oneida veterans out there for their service to our country and our nation. I would like to start off by sharing a story. An old man told his grandson, "My son, there's an endless battle that goes on inside all of us. It is between two wolves. One is bad. He is anger, envy, regret, greed, arrogance, resentment, lies, superiority, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." All right. I'd like to go in a little bit of history, history with experiences with my grandfathers. I remember as a child going out to eat every Friday with my grandfather and looking back at the situation and some of the things I've learned through sobriety. He was always helping somebody to get sober and help change their lives. Some funny stories. Grandma liked to drive pretty fast with her car. That was pretty cool as a child to see, go through Oneida where the police station was and flying down that road at 80 miles an hour and just seeing how fast everything was moving. When we got home, we got to Grandma and Grandpa's house and the car was smoking and me and my cousin were just laughing. She said, "Don't tell your grandpa." She pulled in, he saw the car was smoking. He goes, "What did you do?" And she goes, "I don't know nothing about cars. You know more than I do. You should probably fix it." My grandpa Nick, I remember staying overnight at his house. He was a Navy man, so he was got used to getting up very early in the morning. He'd always wake me up and he'd say, "Let's go get some donuts." I'd just spring out of bed. We'd drive to Seymour. He'd get his coffee, newspaper, and we'd get 3 donuts, one for Grandma. That third donut never made it home for Grandma. We ended up splitting it. So then we learned that maybe we should buy 4 donuts. It's stories like that, remembering them and their spirit and seeing how their spirit lives within me, their good-heartedness. He used to tell me a lot of stories as we would drive. Something very interesting that happened, my sister had a baby 2 years ago, and I was feeding her some spaghetti, and I just started singing to her. I started singing, "She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes." My mom looked at me like she'd seen a ghost, and she said, "Your grandpa used to always sing that song." And then one of my aunts said, yeah, and then he got sober, and then he started singing it in the Oneida language. It was one of those moments where it's just, you don't know where things come from. That spirit inside and that good-heartedness, and the memories I have with them, with those guys. I started my journey in the Oneida AA sobriety group, which is on Wednesday nights. I struggled. It was early July 2018. I had a severe panic attack. I didn't know what it was. I never felt this feeling before. I had a really bad breakdown. I had a very intense, real feeling. It's hard to explain, like an urge of suicide. I didn't like that. As I've learned things in the program, I realize, looking back now, how I was surrounded by people in sobriety. There were people there to help me when I needed it. I went, at that time where I was employed, I went to the HR. I told them I needed to get help. She helped ease my pain. Her husband went through a similar situation. So I took some time off work. I detoxed on my own, which is not a wise decision. I went to Oneida Behavioral Health and I asked for a counselor. We started to work together. You know, it was a big struggle. It was something I'd never experienced before. I was a binge drinker for the longest time. Then that binge drinking turned into everyday drinking. I would drink till the moment I got off of work, till I went to bed at 8 or 9. And then every morning I would wake up and I would tell myself I'm not doing this again today. And then 9 o'clock would come. That fog is starting to be lifted in my head. Noon would come, I'd eat something, I'd feel better, and then I'd be done with work and then I'd be doing the same thing again. That was a dark pattern of 2 years. My counselor, she was a wise old lady from a tribe a little bit north of here. So we related, could see the similarities in our culture. She encouraged me to learn about my culture. I was very resistant. You know, that alcohol was still always in the back of my mind. I always was still thinking, get through this, you can go have a drink. I kept pushing through. And then I had 30 days sober, and I thought I had it figured out. I quit going to meetings. I figured I learned something on the last night of my relapse. My biggest issue was anger. I needed to learn to get that under control or help dealing with that. The last night I drank was November 12th, 2018. I got in an argument with my wife. She left to go to a work Christmas party. I was left alone, which at that time wasn't good for me. Being alone with the thoughts that I was having was not good. I called an Uber. I went to the bar I always hung out at. I started drinking. There was a gentleman there who was selling NFL apparel and college apparel, the stuff they wear on the field. He wanted $100 for it. I talked him all the way down to 70. He pulled out 13 hats and he set it on the bar, and I gave him $70. And I asked him, what about the bag? And he said it was $5 for the bag. So I paid him $5 for the bag. I proceeded to, I always went to that bar because they would give you a free Uber ride home. I got a Uber ride home. Then I got home, nobody was home. I became even more discontented. Then I got in my truck and I drove to Meyer. I tried buying alcohol at about 2 o'clock in the morning, inebriated out of my mind. I left. They refused to sell me alcohol. I was driving home. There was a snowstorm that night. I almost hit a telephone pole. And it was shortly after I regained control of the truck that I noticed a cop, probably about half mile behind me. You know, when it snows, it's kind of a beautiful thing how quiet it is and how much better your vision can be. There was that moment where I could see the lights on top of the vehicle. I made it home. I didn't get pulled over. I was very lucky, very grateful that I didn't hit that telephone pole. Very grateful I didn't kill anybody or seriously injure anybody. That was hard. I learned a lot from that experience. I learned that my tolerance for alcohol wasn't there anymore. When I would drink, I was switching to stronger whiskeys, and that bite was no longer there. I could not taste that bite from the whiskey. I learned that night what happens. My brain was starting to heal. The tolerance was going down, and that kind of goes to, the obsession of the mind. My brain once I walked into that bar, my brain instinctively knew the way I always drank. And so I drank that way. And I didn't realize that my tolerance was not what it was. And it gave me a butt whooping like you wouldn't believe. That was probably my second worst hangover. My first was when I was, I think about 12, 13 when I drank. I was vomiting all night. I remember my parents thought I was sick. My stepmom thought I had a cold. But my dad noticed the brandy bottle was significantly down. It's moments like that that I realize it's alcohol and I don't work well together anymore. I had to leave it behind. That's when I started to really get serious with my recovery. I started to become more honest with my counselor. I went back to the group. I started going to the meetings regularly. I can honestly say that I've probably, in my almost 4 years of sobriety, I've missed maybe 6, 7, and it's only been because of family vacations or my son's sporting events. There was something very positive and interesting things happen in life. I was coming up on my 2-year anniversary. Someone from the group went to go get me my 2-year medallion, and they were all sold out. So we'll pause the story. At that point, we're going to backtrack over back to my grandpa Nick. I got to talk to him the day before he passed. I mentioned how the group gave me the key to the building where the meeting was being hosted at the time. We talked sobriety. He told me how proud he was of me. And it was about 5:45, and I said, I would really love to stay, but I need to go get the coffee ready for the AA meeting I attend. And he said, you better get your butt going. And he winked at me, and he smiled. And, we just talked basic sobriety. Come to find out, after he passed, and seeing some of the people that I met in sobriety, and them upholding the anonymity of sobriety, and somebody shot me a wink just like he did, and I knew he would attend meetings at the parish hall group, which the Oneida AA group was the parish hall group. The meeting was started in 1953. It is the oldest Native American AA meeting in the nation, and the first. We'll be coming up on 75 years very soon. It's a goal of mine to be there for that. And here's where the story of my grandpa's sobriety comes together with the 2-year medallion. My mom asked me if there was anything I wanted when he passed. I said any AA literature or medallions. So the group wasn't able to get me a 2-year. And I said, that's okay. I'd like to carry my grandpa's 2-year medallion. Also have some of his literature. He took very good care of it from, it had a print date of 1982, the year I was born, and it looked like it was brand new. I would like to share a story of Kermit and Deb Valentino. They were very instrumental on helping me. And at the beginning of the pandemic, as we know, everything was shut down. They held meetings in their backyard outside. Kermit helped me really understand who I was as a person, understanding things, learning to become a better listener. Another person that helped me immensely was Brian Dockstader. Somebody from the Wednesday group suggested maybe trying a sweat lodge. He introduced me to Brian. At that moment, I was probably about 6-7 months sober, still struggling. And in my mind, I was thinking, I'll try anything. I'll try anything to help with this. I got to know Brian very well. He taught me about the grandfathers. He taught me about what the lodge is about. I would go and help him build the fire, clean out the stones from the previous lodge. He pointed out, your fire seems like it's dwindling. Your internal spirit, your fire, and it was, the obsession was still there, and it was, my brain was still in the process of healing. My fire was still burning, but it's still lit. But that first time I lodged with Brian, and I heard the drums, and I heard the singing, and then they would hit that high pitch, and it just sent a shockwave through me. It just woke me up. My fire got hot. It's another guy I never really got to thank before he passed for his help. Kind of some funny things we look at now and looking back. I asked a lot of people's advice. I asked if I could tell some stories we had together. I asked my dad if there's any stories he wanted me to tell. And there's this one. I met my wife at, I crashed a party. She was going to school at St. Norbert's. The first thing she ever said to me is, "Who the F are you? Get the F out of my house." And in my mind, oh my God, I think I love this girl. This is exactly what I need in my life. That's a pattern in my life that, give it to me straight, give it to me honest. Don't sugarcoat it. We started dating. My stepmom was just relieved. He found somebody good. He's not out drinking and driving and causing trouble all over the Green Bay and Oneida area. Little did she know, Clyde met his Bonnie. I wasn't getting into much trouble. We would walk from the bars around St. Norbert's to the house she lived in. Oddly enough, 2 other guys I crashed that party with, they met girls that night, and all 3 of us couples have still been together since that night. So, all of a sudden, I was on a bowling league, and it was a Tuesday night. It was probably about minus 10 degrees out. I go to bowling. My car door won't close all the way, and she texted me and says, "We need to talk." And I know what the talk is going to be. I'm bracing myself, and one of my great uncles was on the bowling team, and he told me, he goes, you and your brother are the last ones to carry on the Webster name. She told me she was pregnant. I told her I was excited. I said it's gonna be a boy, and we're gonna name him Aiden. So here's my dad's favorite part of the story is I went with her to her first ultrasound. I used to work for my dad. I didn't tell him where I was going, and being young, foolish, hungover all the time, and coming in late and whatever. And well, this was middle afternoon. I just took off to go with her to the ultrasound, and I get back and he goes, "Where were you?" I said, "Do you really want to know?" He goes, "Yes, I want to know." I said, "You're going to be a grandpa." He stormed off for a little bit. I didn't know how to handle the situation, so I went back to my wife and hung out at her place, and my stepmom calls, and she just lights me up verbally. I was like, well, here's a reason to get drunk, I guess. And I did. And my stepmom called me later that evening and apologized and said how excited she was to be a grandma. And my dad was excited also. She actually passed away in June of 2005. My wife's dad passed away in July of 2005. And then our son was born Halloween 2005. It was a very tough period for us. Two devastating events, and then a bundle of joy at the end of the year. And my son has always showed an interest in hunting, and my alcoholism was always in the way of getting him to hunter safety. I really wanted him to go through that and learn the proper way to handle a gun. I've learned that there's a lot more knowledgeable people out there than me, so I felt it would be very good for him to go to hunter safety. He went to hunter safety. It was 2019, we did the Wisconsin youth hunt out in Swamico with a friend of mine's dad. He had a very nice blind up 30 feet in the air, probably 10 by 10, plenty of room for 3 guys to walk around in. He missed a doe on Saturday evening. It was a long, tough shot. He missed the doe early afternoon Sunday, and I could see he was just discouraged. He was sitting in the corner. He was upset he missed, and I said, "It's all right, buddy. You didn't hit them. They're okay. They're fine. They made it away. Made it. There's no blood." And all of a sudden we looked up, and there was 2 bucks locking horns. And I said, "Get the gun ready." And he asked me, "Which one should I shoot?" I said, "Whatever you want, whichever one you want." He took a shot. He hit him in the front shoulder. The deer ran away about 30 yards. He laid down behind a tree, and his lung was exposed. I said, "Put one more shot in him." He hit him again. That was about 4 o'clock, and then we had to wait. It was 6:30. We got out of the blind. I kind of feel a little bad because I was excited. He was excited. The old guy we were hunting with, he was ecstatic. We helped him down, and then as soon as my son's feet and I hit the ground, we were off. We were off into the woods. He hopped on his gator. We found the blood trail. We recovered him. It was one of the greatest moments. That moment right there cemented the new foundation I was building in my sobriety. That moment I had with him. And he was 13 at the time. So you know how young men, they're voice starts cracking, and just hearing his excitement in the woods of tracking the blood and the voice cracking, it made everything, it made all those struggles worthwhile of dealing with her in early sobriety. Last year, we did the youth hunt in Michigan. We did it at his grandpa's house, his grandpa's property, the one he shot the buck with. The gun he shot, he used his grandpa's gun to shoot his first buck. We prepared it in August. We got everything ready. We're ready to go. And we get there. Within 10 minutes, there's a doe in one shooting lane, and all of a sudden, a bear pops out in the middle shooting lane. They can hear each other, but they can't see each other because of the trees and the tall brush. And eventually they both scare each other away. And 10 minutes, the bear comes back again, so we thought. I said, that bear's back again. He goes, that's a different bear. He said, the nose is a little bit darker. He said, the curvature on the belly is a little bit different. I said, no way, that's the same bear. Well, 3 minutes later, the second bear walks out. They're about 30 yards away. We got to sit there and watch them for 3 hours. It was pretty awesome to be there. We checked the trail camera the next morning. He was a little bit skittish to walk out of the woods. I said, you got a rifle in your hands. I have a pistol on my hip. They seem to be very young bear, 1.5 years, 2 years old. And when they get scared off, if we would move in the blind, they would hear us and they would move and they would take off. I said, they're constantly going that direction, and we got to go that way. I think we'll be all right. He wanted Mom to come with the side-by-side. I said, okay. And then we checked that camera the next morning. 10 minutes after the side-by-side picked us up, a big 10-pointer walked in. That was a big deer. He didn't get anything that year, but Grandma made venison stew, so we had that waiting for us, and we had a nice hot fire. And he was a little bit shy to tell the story to everybody, and I told him, tell the story. This is yours. My mother-in-law's boyfriend said to him, you know, you're a young man, you're pretty lucky. You know, everything you've seen in your first 4 days hunting, some guys will hunt a lifetime and never get to see that stuff. And I said, yes, you are pretty lucky. And then it dawned on me, I got to be there every moment also. I got to see. So a lot of things hunters won't see. That was truly awesome. You know, all that hard work and sobriety and early sobriety paid off. You know, I got a little bit more organized with things. I started working on myself. My counselor helped immensely. The people in my group helped me immensely. And last, I'd like to share one of my favorite prayers. It's the Native American prayer. O Great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I am small and weak. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you have made, and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise so that I may understand the things you have taught my people. Let me learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. I seek strength, not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes, so when life fades as the fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame. Uncle.